Man's Search for Meaning is one of the top 10 most influential books chosen by the U.S. Congress, translated into 24 languages and renowned worldwide. Its author, Viktor Frankl, was a famous psychiatrist, dubbed the miracle man of the 20th century. During the Nazi era, as a Jew, he was imprisoned in a concentration camp known as the Death Factory. Yet, he not only survived that hellish cage, but also pioneered logotherapy, rekindling a sense of purpose for those in despair. This book is divided into two parts. The first recounts the author's experiences in the concentration camp. In the second, he combined his experiences with academic insights to create a therapeutic method, helping people find the meaning of rebirth from dead ends and reclaim a glorious path in their lives. If I had to summarize this book in 3 words, they would be choice, suffering, and meaning. A famous Russian writer Dostoevsky once said, "I have only one fear, not to be worthy of my suffering. I have suffered too much, and I must gain meaning from what I have endured." How to transform pain into meaning? Perhaps it's just one step away, a step called choice, and the distance for each of us on this path differs. Crossing mountains and rivers, who doesn't cherish their own life? But when the storm passes and the rain stops, you'll suddenly realize that all the pain you encounter in this life is actually here to save you. If you are struggling with pain, despair in life, if you have countless confusions, sorrows, and fears, you can find strength in this book. # choice. You can be stripped of anything, but never lose the power to choose. In 1930, all of Europe was plunged into the horrors of Nazism. At that time, Frankl was the head of the neurology department at a hospital in Vienna, the capital of Austria, and had a happy family. To protect Frankl's safety, the U.S. Embassy in Vienna offered him an entry visa. However, he couldn't bear to leave behind his parents, family, and patients. So, he chose to stay. Unexpectedly, just a few months later, the Nazis occupied Vienna. He, his wife, parents, and siblings were all arrested and sent to a concentration camp. Like Frankl, 1,500 others also suffered a similar fate. Many of them were businessmen, doctors, teachers, and scientists. However, these once respectable and honored individuals were transformed into prisoners, arbitrarily trampled upon and humiliated. They constantly faced the threat of gas chambers, crematories, or being beaten to death. All their belongings were confiscated, and they were herded like cattle into barracks, like a stable meant for a maximum of 200 people. Each day, they were given only a small piece of bread, a bowl of thin soup, allowed to wear only one flimsy set of clothes, and forced to repair railway tracks and perform arduous labor. At night, they shivered on wooden planks, 9 people sharing 2 blankets, using mud-caked shoes as pillows. If they were careless, if they unluckily encountered guards in a bad mood, they would be brutally beaten. Even more terrifying, once their bodies collapsed and they could no longer perform heavy labor, they would be sent to the gas chamber to end their lives. In the concentration camp, almost everyone contemplated suicide. The easiest way was to run into the electric fence. Thus, a permanent end was not difficult. To continue surviving, to live on here, was the hardest thing. So, what allowed Frankl not to lose his will to survive, but to strive with all his might to turn the tide and save his own life? For him, first and foremost, it was the power of choice. He always believed that even in the worst psychological and physical conditions, humans could maintain a certain degree of spiritual freedom and independent consciousness. From there, they could choose their own behavior and reactions, as well as decide who they wanted to become. The first time Frankl had to strip naked in the concentration camp, he realized that apart from their bare bodies, everyone had nothing. Accumulated wealth meant nothing. So many of your possessions, all the external things of your being, could be taken away at any moment by an uncontrollable force. The only things that could not be taken away were the freedom to choose your reaction. We cannot control what happens in our lives, but we can control our emotions and actions when facing these events. Everyone in the concentration camp faced the same incredibly harsh living environment, but their reactions differed. Some chose to give up, some chose apathy, some chose unwavering perseverance. So, what will you choose when facing pain? Consider the classic dialogue of a French writer. Do you truly love life? Yes, I do. Have you ever suffered? A few times, but suffering itself is life. Human life is like the ocean, with its ebb and flow, never knowing where it will drift. Suffering is like rushing tides, crashing in wave after wave. In this world, no life is solely sweet without bitterness, nor solely bitter without a touch of sweetness. Life is inherently full of ups and downs, and it always comes with suffering. That suffering could be endless overtime, staying up very late and waking up very early, working tirelessly day after day just to sustain life. That pain could be the sudden loss of a loved one, leaving you adrift and alone, or perhaps an unfortunate accident that befalls you. In this life, we will experience countless joys and sorrows, but no matter how difficult life becomes, all of it will eventually pass. Without enduring a bit of cold, how can one truly appreciate the delicate beauty of cherry blossoms? Fragile flowers can still bloom in rock crevices, towering trees can still stand proudly in desolate lands. And so can you. You will always have a choice beyond giving up, beyond letting go, beyond blaming yourself. It is the choice to bravely face difficulties and never easily surrender. Just like that, even when you stand before an abyss, it cannot make you sink deeply and fall into it. So remember, everything in life has cause and effect. All that makes you suffer is here to save you. Suffering. Everything that causes you pain will make you stronger. In 100 years of solitude, it is said, we walk an eternal journey of life, running on a bumpy road, resurrecting in failure. Sorrow weighs heavy on our bodies, suffering falls everywhere. We are tired but cannot stop. We suffer but cannot avoid it. Suffering is a normal part of life. If we understand this, our hearts will be at peace and full of strength to accept and confront challenges. Suffering always has a good side, just as a great poet once said, "Remember well all that suffering leaves behind. When suffering passes, it will become sweet." Life is like a complex spice. The more it's crushed, the richer its flavor becomes. Although Frankl possessed an intense will to live, the daily torture also drove him into despair, just like other prisoners. He suffered from severe edema, illness due to prolonged lack of food, clothing, and sleep. His feet were swollen, knees couldn't bend, and his legs were covered in thorns from forced labor, making every step excruciatingly painful. Later, when assigned to care for patients, he unfortunately contracted typhoid fever and was nearly sent to the crematorium. The experience of standing on the brink of death repeatedly made him begin to reconsider the meaning of life. He observed all kinds of people in the concentration camp and saw that as long as they held the image of a loved one in their hearts, they would never give up on their lives. Therefore, he decided not to let himself die numbly from exhaustion or illness, but to view the concentration camp as a place for psychological training. When other prisoners were paralyzed and lost themselves, he taught them to ignore suffering with humorous jokes. When prisoners were disheartened and wanted to give up hope, he used veiled speeches to encourage everyone to stand up. Even while suffering from typhoid and potentially dying from the disease, facing death at any moment, he continued to jot down notes on scraps of paper, preparing for the future publication of his psychology book. 3 years of imprisonment strengthened his heart more and more. At the same time, he gained a deep understanding of human nature, from which he developed a unique psychotherapeutic method. It was the physical pain that spurred an infinite spiritual motivation within him. As Frankl once said, only after enduring hellish suffering can one develop the strength to create heaven. After the bone-chilling cold, red roses bloom in the wind. After the agony of a broken wing, the eagle soars high into the sky. We always fear failure, fear crisis in the face of suffering, unaware that it is precisely these bitter, uncomfortable experiences that forge the path for us to rise. The people who make you clench your teeth in hatred, the actions that cause you pain, will all transform into nutrients that help you be reborn. There is no pain that cannot be healed, no collapse that cannot end. All that is lost will return in another form. Our human nature is to seek advantage and avoid disadvantage. But if we know that it is in an environment of extreme hardship that humans have the opportunity to achieve spiritual transcendence, then we will never view suffering as a calamity, nor feel unfortunate when encountering adversity. Frankl believed that suffering, misfortune, and death are all inseparable components of life. A person's life would not be complete without suffering and death. Even in suffering, humans can hold their heads high, savor the flavor that suffering brings, and be proud to have endured it. Dostoevsky said, I have only one fear, not to be worthy of the suffering I endure. So, to be worthy of what we experience, what must we do? Meaning. He who has a asterisk y to live for can bear almost any asterisk how. This quote from Nietzsche is also the motto Frankl used to explain the importance of meaning in one's life. After all suffering comes meaning. In the concentration camp, Frankl witnessed many people pass away, not due to lack of food or medicine, but because they had no reason to continue living. Statistics show that the highest death rates in concentration camps were around Christmas, and this was also true on the battlefields of World War II. Because most prisoners hoped they could return home before Christmas, but when that hope dwindled, their spirits collapsed with it. A weakened spirit severely undermined the body's resistance, leading to death. In modern life, the same phenomenon occurs. Many people suffer from depression and psychological disorders because they cannot find meaning in life, and they lose direction in a society where they feel interwoven between existence and invisibility. Therefore, Frankl put forth the view that what keeps people living is not hope, but meaning. Humans live to search for the meaning of their own lives for humanity. It is even more important than achieving pleasure or avoiding pain. In the book, the author presented 3 different ways to help us find meaning in life. The first is to create meaningful work or pursue a specific career. Simply put, it is achievement through work. The second is to experience a state of care, compassion, and love towards a specific person. The third is to possess an attitude of courageously confronting difficulties, thorns, or critical moments in life. And nothing else in the world can help people survive as effectively as realizing that their life has meaning. The meaning of life encompasses a broad cycle from birth to death, including both hardships and trials. Therefore, open your heart and experience this life, no matter how much suffering or happiness it contains. # You will achieve as much as you endure. After being liberated from the concentration camp in 1945, Frankl found himself terribly alone. His parents, younger brother, and his beloved pregnant wife all died in captivity from illness and starvation. His fellow prisoners who survived the camp had emigrated to other countries, leaving him with no family or friends. He decided to return to his old profession as a psychiatrist to help those suffering from mental trauma after the war. He plunged into his work, combining his personal experience with academic knowledge to create logotherapy. Through lecturing and psychological counseling, he helped many fathers and mothers contemplating suicide after losing their children, husbands unable to let go of their deceased wives, and thousands of strangers living in despair. He rewrote the manuscript he had hidden when entering the concentration camp and spent 9 days to complete Man's Search for Meaning. Over the next few decades, he wrote more than 30 books and traveled the world to lecture. It was the experience of escaping death that ignited his immense passion for life, and he was always ready to experience new things at any moment. At 67, he began learning to fly and obtained his pilot's license within a few months. At 80, he resolutely challenged himself with outdoor sports, climbing the highest and most extensive mountain range in Europe. Even past 90, he still spoke with patients visiting from all over the world and personally answered letters every week to help people resolve their questions. Many were deeply moved by his experiences and work. Universities like Harvard, Stanford, and other prestigious institutions invited him to be a professor. Renowned politicians, philosophers, and even Pope John Paul II read his books and traveled from afar to visit him. It can be said that the war destroyed Frankl's life and took away his loved ones, but he chose to emerge from the ashes of suffering and live, shining like an aura. There's a saying, suffering is a springboard for genius, good fortune for the capable, and an abyss for the weak. Suffering is always a challenge, a compulsory course in your life. The more pain you can endure, the more achievements you can attain. From choice to overcoming suffering, ultimately grasping the profound meaning of life. Frankl's life has left an indelible source of inspiration for millions worldwide, and the logotherapy he founded continues to help people. If you explore psychology or delve into discussions on psychological books, you'll see that, compared to psychoanalysis, logotherapy doesn't focus excessively on confronting the inner self and the past, but primarily looks toward the future and the main purpose of existence. For Fromm, it's about pursuing pleasure. For Adler, it's about striving for superiority, overcoming inferiority complexes. In contrast, Frankl believed it's about pursuing meaning. The search for meaning in life is the primary motivation for existence. The author of How the Steel Was Tempered once said that human life is like a rushing river. Without islands, collisions, and submerged rocks, it is hard to create beautiful waves to see fragrant flowers, birds, fish, and water. How can it lack the tempering of nature? Life will be better when we dare to proactively temper ourselves in difficult circumstances. Only by overcoming unprecedented depths can we ascend to seemingly unconquerable peaks. When an individual successfully finds meaning, they will not only feel happy, but also possess the ability to face all difficulties in life. May all of us, when facing difficulties, suffering, and failure, look to man's search for meaning, and, like Frankl, overcome all hardships to possess a strong inner self, ceaselessly creative and passionate about life. Savor your current life as if you were living it a second time.